Welcome back to Fast Freddy RC, and today we're going to start the build process of the Tamiya Subaru Brat on the ORV chassis. Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the manual. I always find it's a good idea to go through, see what we're actually dealing with through that process, and I always suggest at this stage, before you get started with the build, get yourself a set of ball bearings. The ball bearings, specifically in the ORV kits, is a great idea because you don't want the premature wear that comes from the brass bushings or the plastic bushings. So a full set of ball bearings is a very, very smart idea. So I highly suggest doing that before you start the build. Now there is one interesting thing with this kit, and I'll show you at the end of this manual overview, but this is where you find out some of these little details. It says that there are 12 1150 bearings, so I've got them here ready to go, but it also shows that there are 4 that are already included in the kit for the gearbox, which means there's only 8 that's needed. So technically I think you only need to be looking at getting yourself 8 1150 bearings. But I'll show you where that is in the manual as we get going. So let's crack this open and take a look. Now I'm not going to go through all this intro stuff, but let's get into the build itself. Now obviously right off the bat we're going to work with the chassis. So we're going to put this ORV chassis frame together, which really is the basis of this entire thing. And again, looking at this step just takes me right back to building a Blackfoot. So we're going to need to put in all of the frame pieces. Some are plastic, some are metal. We've got these pieces that go in there so that the screws are going to attach to that. You've got this bumper bit that's going to go in. You've got your battery door that's got to go in. So that's what we're dealing with step 1. We're literally putting that part together, and we've got anti-wear grease there as well. Then in step 2, we're going to work on the front arms. So we're going to grab the parts out of that metal parts bag and put it together like it's showing here. And then in step 3, we're going to work on the front suspension. So we're going to take the pieces we just made in step 2 and start putting the plastic arms in there. We've got these bits, the radius arms that have to be attached. So we're going to do that. And you can see how this needs to go. You can see there needs to be a gap on either side so that they're able to move freely. So we're going to be working on that. Then in step 4, we're going to attach the suspension stays, and you can see here, this is where we're going to put in our springs, which is going to be how our front suspension works. And I know it's old school, but it's so cool how this works. Just like the Frog, your front suspension is pretty much hidden inside the chassis because of these springs. And then of course we're going to get our body mount posts, that nice aluminum blue anodized piece that's going to go into that. So we're going to put that together. Then in step 5, we're going to attach the front suspension. So all of that's going to now be attached to here, and you'll be able to see how those front arms end up working with that spring inside the front. Very, very cool. Then in step 6, we're going to attach the front bumper. So we're going to put that on, and of course you can see we also have our step screws, so we're going to attach those radius arms as well. Then in step 7, we're going to work on the spur gear. Now this is where, depending on how you are planning on building it, you can see select spur gear from 3 types below. You've got a standard type, high speed type, and torque type, that in terms of those pinions, but we need to figure out which spur gear we're going to use. Again, we'll take a look at that closer when I get to it. Then of course in step 8, we're going to be working on the gearbox. So this is where we're going to work on our differential that needs to go inside of all of this. Very, very cool. I will say that the ORV chassis gearbox is a little awkward, and it's a little challenging if you don't put it together right. If you don't get it right the first time, let's put it that way, because the metal plates, if you were to screw these down just as you would any other gearbox, and you screw it down nice and tight, you could find that the gears inside the gearbox actually end up being screwed solid. They won't move. So you kind of have to play with it a bit and make sure that you're not over tightening the metal pieces. Otherwise, you're just going to make it impossible for the gears inside to move. But again, I'll show you that as we go through this. So step 9, obviously gearbox 2, we're working on the other side. We're putting all the rest of the gears in place, and we're going to be screwing down the metal parts. And again, it can be complicated if you don't do it right. So we'll go slow through that step. 10, installing the gearbox. Well, that one's pretty self-explanatory. We're just going to screw this all down, screw in the gearbox, and get that ready for the next part. Then in step 11, we're going to be working on the drive shaft assembly. So again, we're going to grab our boot and cut it where you see, and then we've got to get these dog bones inside the rubber boots. Then in step 12, we're going to work on the rear arm assembly. Very, very cool. Again, takes me right back to building the Blackfoot here. And then step 13, we're going to attach the rear arms. And again, that's where those other metal pieces are going to go to attach that to the chassis and the trailing arms. Very, very cool. Then in step 14, it's time to start working on the rear dampers. So of course, these are oil filled, so we're going to be working on that. Very, very cool. And then in step 15, we're going to be adding the oil to these dampers. And then in 16, we're going to attach the rear dampers to the chassis. Very cool. And then in step 17, attaching the pinion gear. Well, again, this is where we have a choice. So we have a 16, an 18, and a 19 included in this kit, which is very, very cool. So we're going to need to decide what we're going to do there. So again, we've got our spur gear changes, and we've got our pinion gear changes. So we're just going to have to figure out which one we're going to end up using for this. Then in step 18, we've got to attach the motor. So there's that motor cover there. We've got a couple of screws, attach that, and then we're going to put this in there too for the battery door. Once the battery is closed, this kind of keeps everything in place. Very cool. Then in 19, attaching the RC equipment. Now this is interesting. They are showing you, obviously there's the servo that goes down, and then we've got the ESC, which needs to be stuck with double-sided tape, and you put it down there too. I might not do that depending on how much room there is. I may put the ESC up here. It just depends on whether that's going to get in the way of the driver figure. I'm not sure. I'd just rather have it higher so it's away from the dirt and the grime, because down here it's pretty low. But we'll see how we'll see when we get to it. And then of course you can see they're showing you putting the receiver again down below too. Again, I might try to get both of those things up at the top as opposed to where they're saying. But we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not 100% sure whether it's doable. Then in step 20, we're going to be working on the steering rods, getting those sized out right. And then in 21, we're going to be attaching the servo saver. So we are going to need to do our equipment check. Now it's really interesting because in almost every other kit it says, RC equipment check. This just says attaching servo saver. Well, we can't do that unless we do the equipment check, which you kind of are seeing here with the battery that they're showing, but it's not telling you to do it the way that we normally do. So anyways, we'll when we get to this step, I'll show you how I'm going to be doing this. Then in 22, the front wheel. Well, this is where we're going to start working on attaching everything. So we're going to need to put these wheels into the tires. I'm going to be very curious to know whether this is easier or about the same as putting on the frog and grasshopper wheels, just because of the three pieces. But We'll see. I do love the 3-piece wheel setups with the screws. I think the wheels end up looking really, really cool. And then in step 23, the rear wheel, same idea. And then 24, we're going to attach the front wheels. That'll be fairly simple to do. And then in 25, attaching the rear wheels. And again, we're going to do that. And oh, I see we got the pins that we're going to remove off that. Right, that's okay. We'll get, when we get to this step, I'll show you how I tend to do this. And you can see attaching antenna. Again, not entirely sure whether I'm going to do that or not, but we'll see. Then in step 26, installing the running battery. Again, this is going to be pretty self-explanatory, but we're also going to be adding the underguard here. Very, very cool, because you can see underneath that is your ESC and your servo, so that needs to be there to protect your electronic equipment. And then in 27, attaching the rear body mounts. So we've got to put those on. And then in 28, we're going to be working on the steering adjustment. So we need to make sure that the wheels are cambered right, or the toe in, etc. Just so that we can set that up properly. So that's what we're going to do in step 28. Then in step 29, we're going to be working on the body, the driver figure, and you can see plastic body, it's highlighted there. So we're going to need to paint all of this up and get it ready to go, get our driver ready to go. And then in 30, we're going to be attaching the windows to that body. And you can see there, we're going to need to do that. Now it's interesting the way they're showing this, because obviously we need to paint this body. So I'm going to be doing this box art, so we're going to need to spray this down, or at least as close to box art as I can. We can't get the spray paints here in Canada anymore, so I'm going to have to try and match this as best I can. Then we'll attach all of these bits and pieces. And then in 31, we're going to attach the driver figure. Very cool. We've got our other window that needs to go in there too. And then in step 32, we're going to attach the roll bar. So that's got to be attached to the I guess we bring it in from the top, and you can see how that's all going to be attached. And that metal clip that I wasn't entirely sure of when we did the unboxing, sure enough, it's for attaching the front bumper and grille to the body itself. It's going to be a bit of work. I can tell that. This is going to take a little bit of time to get right, but that's okay. And then they've got instructions here for the polycarbonate body. So we're going to obviously have to trim that body up and put in the holes needed for the body mount posts. And you can see the dark gray, that's all got to be cut away. So we're going to have to work on that. And then in step 34, we're going to need to paint up the body, and you can see they're showing you the paint colors needed for, like, even the bar here, your bumper bar that goes all the way around. You can see the different colors that are going to be needed for that, so we're going to have to work on that. And then in 35, obviously there's the painting of the body, which I won't be doing. I've got a buddy of mine's going to do all that for me. And then in 36, we've got the markings. Now, again, this body here, it looks more like it's for the polycarbonate body as opposed to, well, maybe not. It's hard to tell. Sticker can be applied to boxer die. Sticker can be applied to plastic body though it is designed for use with transparent body. Aha. Okay, so we're gonna have to figure that one out. Interesting. Use extra stickers as you wish. Okay, well we'll work on that when we get to it. 37, attaching the body. You can see where the pins are going to go and how that's all going to attach. And yeah, looks to me like this is the polycarbonate body. So they really are showing you putting all those decals and whatnot on the polycarbonate version of it. I don't know. Bit confused on that, but we'll see. So that ends up being the last step for this. So step 36 and 37 are the last steps of the manual. So bearings, let's go back to this for a second. So, I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's showing you all the parts, if you need spares, etc. It's showing you your spur gears, etc. But what I want to show you is this. You can see here, transmission parts bag, MD. There is plastic bearings. There's 8 of the MD1s. Ball bearings, there are 4 of the MD2. Now when I look for a ball bearing kit for the Subaru Brat, they all show 12 1150 bearings. But the Brat literally comes with 4 of them for the transmission. So technically, you only need 8 ball bearings for this kit to replace the 8 plastic bearings. So just make a note of that. You actually, if you want to go full ball bearings for this kit, 4 of them are already included. You just need to get 8 for the rest of the kit. So that is the manual overview for the Subaru Brat. I will be getting started on this fairly quickly, so again, hit that notification button if you'd like to follow along, and definitely subscribe. There's more and more content on the way, so until next time, we'll see you in another video.